Hey babies, it's your favorite messy bitch on the internet, Mr. BMG, back at it again to give you more juicy content. Let's get into it. So anyway, this past weekend was actually pretty nice. This past week was actually really nice. Now this AC goes off. Like really, the timing is so annoying. Anyway, so there's this AC thing. It always goes off at the most random times. Even if it's off, even if you switch the thing off, it still goes off. And I'm just like, where are we going with this? You know what I mean? Like, is it not supposed to be manually controlled? Am I not supposed to have it off when I want it off? And when it does come on, it makes such an annoying sound. So I know that it's probably going to give some feedback to this, but we move, we're going to do with what we have and we're going to keep it moving. But anyway, enough with the off-ramping, back on track. This past week was actually really nice. I got to spend some time in Miami for my birthday. Well, my actual birthday is coming up, so I guess it was like a pre-birthday trip that I took. Just a week in Miami, just wanted some warmth, and just like good energy, good vibes, change of scenery. You'd be surprised what that can literally do to you. So, that was really fun. Got to catch Tubo Bunnies perform on the Saturday night at Zeze, so that was like really cute. I always love to support Africans in the diaspora. I think it's just always, it's important to do that. It's important to keep the dream alive because all of us at some point had that, dream of going out there in the world, making it big and, doing things. And so it's always really great to celebrate, people from your ancestral soil because those are your people. Those are the people you want to see do well. So I was like, you know what? Let me actually go to this concert and let me enjoy myself. And it was really, really quite nostalgic. A lot of the music that I played. So I obviously grew up in South Africa and I obviously I have an appreciation for Amapiano music, and that was the vibe. They were just giving us everything we wanted to have, and it was really, really, really cute, very nice. And I really hope that they grow because obviously that was the first time I've seen them perform. That was the first time I've seen two Bunnies perform, and I feel like they were really good. Like it was the first time I saw two Bunnies perform, and I think they were like really good. Also, I hope I'm saying their name correctly. You never really know how to say people's name until they say it to you, but that's how I say it. But this was the first time I got to see them perform, and I think they were like quite solid, very, very electrifying, lots of energy. And I think that's what we want from DJs, right? That's what we want from musicians. You want to be in the space to vibe and to party, not, to necessarily remember reality or anything, not so cute. So I think they were really great. The crowd was loving them. Obviously my Miami trip will be another episode of Catching Flights, so definitely stay tuned for that whole spin and all the exciting things I got to do in Miami. And I also got to catch Pride, Miami Beach Pride, which is also really, really nice. That was actually the chief reason I went because I was like, I've never been to Miami Pride and I think it'll be something fun and very special. So it was absolutely amazing. Honey, Pride on the beach, it was cute. Like it was so, so, so vibey. The weather was so perfect. The atmosphere was cute, and South Beach is always just an amazing time. So I'm not going to give too much away. So I want you to stick around and, wait for that episode of Catching Flights to come out and enjoy. So, off the back of the weekend, the biggest story that I found quite interesting was how apparently Billboard has released another list of musicians and basically they're ranking them. And I feel like they've been doing this kind of off of the back of the biggest pop star list, which is also kind of a very interesting list because, it brings about a lot of conversation, with different people. Like everyone wants to just talk about what they're doing. I feel like Billboard has been trying to trigger people just with all the lists that they've been releasing. I think there was a biggest pop star list, then there was biggest R&B artist or something, but like they've been releasing lots of lists of greatest of this genre, greatest of that genre, greatest period, and yes, I do feel like that kind of keeps them relevant because I feel like if they are constantly creating conversations about people who they are essentially in the business of ranking, I think that's good business with them because chart data is very much a touchy subject. It's very, on the top of people's lips all the time because stan culture is a thing, right? A lot of people on the internet will defend people they don't know for the sake of defending them because they feel personally connected to their art and their craft and their music. And look, I don't hate stan culture, like I really don't, because I think without it, a lot of the biggest pop stars and a lot of the great stars that we have today won't have the, the goodwill and the equity and the platforms that they actually do have, if it wasn't for those loyal people. So yeah, I say all this to say, stans, do not even come for me at all. I'm literally like one of y'all, I'm one of you all people. So please let us work together in all of this. But anyway, so the list was released, and I think, so before, I guess as a backstory also, the list of, I think, the greatest pop stars had, I think, Beyonce as first, and then that other girl who I won't mention because I feel like she's overrated, as second, and then Rihanna as third. I think that's the list. Yeah, the list of the greatest pop stars had Beyonce, that other girl, and then Rihanna. And I feel like I kind of sort of didn't agree with that list as well. Of course, I agreed with Beyonce being first on that particular list, but I also do feel like there were some controversies on that particular list that were included. And I feel like that's also kind of rage baiting in some ways. And I feel like it's done intentionally, or clickbaiting, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's going to spark a reaction out of people because they may not agree with the positions in the rankings. Personally, I agreed with Beyonce being first. I actually didn't agree with Rihanna being third because that overrated girl was second. And I feel like that's even overrated. The fact that she's second means that's actually overrating her. I feel like she does not deserve to be way up there, and maybe in some part it's because of the chart data, and maybe a particular segment of the population of the world have a really great and loyal appreciation of mediocrity and essentially of her, and so I'll let them have that. But for the rest of us who couldn't care about mediocrity, we don't want to see that girl that high up because she doesn't deserve to be it. She doesn't deserve to be on that list. She's not that talented. She's a very safe choice. And yeah, she really hasn't done anything earth-shattering that warrants a fervent, loyal fan base. She's just a basic girl. And I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about, because I'm not even going to go into further detail about her and give her airtime. But yeah, so essentially they released that list, and those are kind of the top three, and those sparked controversies because, again, right, in this conversation that I'm having, I disagreed with that particular person being second because she's talentless. But that's the point. That's the reason why they make the list. So they made this female rap list where Nicki Minaj was first, agreed. Missy Elliott was second, agreed. Yeah, and then the rest of the people, I feel like most people only really care about first or second because people always tend to debate who should be first, who should be second, who should be first, whatever the case may be. I do think Nicki Minaj has earned her stripes being the queen of rap because she has the body of work to prove it. She has worked for she's almost had a 20-year career / 2-decade career, in the sense that she's sort of been popping since late 2000s and bordering on late 2020s, people. Time has been flying. So she's been around for a very long time. She's inspired, a whole generation of female rappers, but also not to say that what she did was completely new. She obviously also learned from the people who came before her, and in some, circumstances, she's obviously made it clear that, listen, this person inspired me. I think Foxy Brown is somebody she mentions quite a lot, so she's not divorced from the reality that she went into a space where there were already iconic people before her, and she just did something different and essentially created an identity for herself, making her a legend and giving her longevity, which is what is the difference between her position on the list and just her career in general and everyone else on that list. It's longevity. She has stood the test of time. She has goodwill. She has equity, and she's proved herself more than enough that even if she never releases anything else, she's that girl and she'll always be that girl. So Nicki Minaj being first place, definitely a solid that Billboard did for all of us because we agree. It's agreed, and it's also a very undisputed fact. Not that it's a fact, this is all opinion, but you get what I mean. And then they had so they had Foxy Brown as 10, and then they had Cardi B as number 11, and that for me was controversial because I just did not think that she would be that high up. Yeah, I said that high up because the girl, for me, right, in my opinion, I don't think she's done enough for enough time to even be on that list. Yes, she may have won a Grammy, right, because obviously Grammys, for me, with just the history that they've had, and this is probably a conversation for another day, they're not necessarily indicative of talent anymore. It's just more of a very political award that if you know the right people, you can wiggle your way into getting. And essentially, it's just kind of dimmed the credibility of it. So, yes, she's won a Grammy. She had a cute little album. I think Invasion of Privacy with all those hits that she had. But can we call her a one album wonder? Yes. One hit wonder? Maybe not one hit wonder, but she hasn't had that many songs that have been hot. So she's kind of a one wonder if you think about it. And well, people may say, well, Lauryn Hill is like top 3, I think, right? But she's also a kind of a one album wonder. She got all those Grammys for that one album. I think maybe just the difference is the gravity of Lauryn Hill's work versus Cardi. I just think Cardi was kind of a photocopy of a person who was already running things at the time. Nicki Minaj was well established at the time, and there comes Cardi B basically photocopying and pasting, from that. And so because of that, that also took away from Cardi B's, stamp or space within the industry, because I feel like if people constantly think of somebody else when they think of you, then you don't really have an identity, and all you were was just a manufactured disruptor who got popularity because they're likable and they're funny and relatable to a lot of mediocre people. Again, mediocrity sells for some reason. But I don't think she's exceptional. I don't think she's worked at the acumen at the level as Nicki Minaj. Lauryn Hill, yes, she also had one album. But I think, again, the difference is the era in which Lauryn Hill was and the things that she did in that time, particularly in the 90s where rap music was so male-dominated, was in and of itself iconic. And you can't actually compare Lauryn Hill and Lady Gaga. I mean, you can't actually compare Lauryn Hill and Cardi B because it's just not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. Doja Cat was number 16 on the list, which I think we could have swapped Doja Cat and Cardi B, because Doja Cat, I actually respect Doja Cat's body of work. I think, yes, she's obviously inspired by Nicki Minaj, but I feel like Doja Cat is not a photocopy of Nicki Minaj. So that's what she actually deserves, the clout and respect that she gets and that she should get. She's carved out her own little weird girl lane. She's very kind of weird and unusual, and that's what makes her Doja Cat. I feel that's what makes her different from Nicki Minaj, because when I think of both of them, I don't appreciate them for the same things, even though they're both very effeminate rappers and all of that stuff, but I don't appreciate them for the same things. And that's why I feel like Doja Cat has longevity potential. She can be within the industry for a long time, for as long as she maintains her identity and separates herself from being a photocopy of an iconic person who's still within their years of relevance. So yeah, I would have swapped Doja Cat and Cardi B on that particular list. And then I think they also put Doechii on that particular list. While I actually appreciated her music when I listened to it. So I feel like what I also kind of found interesting about Doechii was what I found interesting about Doechii was that when I listened to her music, it kind of sounded also kind of very weird. It also sounded like quite 90s music, 90s type of rap music, in a very offbeat, weird, tomboyish, almost Issa Rae kind of rap music. Do you get what I mean? So there's inspiration from different interesting things. She's not overtly feminine. She is quite a tomboy in some ways, and maybe that's also deliberate because they're like, well, if we want to dethrone Nicki Minaj, maybe let's manufacture somebody who's not that feminine, but is feminine enough to be, I guess, attractive to the masses, and who's also kind of nostalgic and who has that sort of maybe 90s awkward girl vibe that's the mainstream like. Yeah, I feel like that's what the basis of her identity. Do I feel like she should have been on the list? I think it's entirely quite early, Yes, she got a Grammy, but again, this thing of us basing people's credentials on Grammys isn't really what the list should be, I think, does she have potential? Can she become great? That's really up to her, for as long as she carves out her own lane and sticks to something and sticks to an image, she could be. But for as long as she is a pawn within the industry game of trying to dethrone the girl who is the current reigning queen of rap music, then it's not going to work. Then she'll be a pawn, because once they realize that it hasn't worked for the 100th time, then they're going to push her to the side and bring another girl to do the same thing and keep using people instead of creating niche and new spaces for artists to exist. You're trying to continuously force somebody else out. Nicki Minaj could be active for 40 to 60 more years. She really could be, but that's not to say somebody else can't also be successful. They can be, so long as they're different. So yeah, that's what I need y'all to realize. But anyway, enough about the Billboard list. Very controversial, but always very entertaining. I wonder what they're going to release next. The next story that I found quite interesting, and I guess this is kind of from last week, but the whole Saturday Night Live story with Morgan Wallen just abruptly leaving. And then literally, I think a day after, the guy announces new work of his, I don't know if it was a new album or new music, whatever the case may be. Again, I feel like it was a marketing ploy, right? Personally for me, people are going to talk about it, and because they talk about it, now you have eyeballs, you have people who are paying attention to what you're doing, so it's the perfect time to release music. Any attention is good attention is probably an age-old adage of probably any industry insider, publicist, or PR genius, because people are going to talk about you, and I think that's probably why people loved platforms like Wendy Williams, because it kept a lot of people relevant within the culture. It was an authority. So in this regard, the internet is kind of the authority. So people are talking about Morgan Wallen, and that's what he wanted. So it's not really a story. I think that was just intentional. Perhaps he could be a weird character. Good for him. That's cute. But it for me, it's more so it was just a marketing ploy. I do appreciate his music. Well, the one song that I know, because I've got very varying interests and varying tastes in music, but it's the Thought You Should Know song. I just thought it was such a beautiful song. It's such a classic, and it's just cutesy. I really, really love that song. So for me, he's relevant because of that song and nothing else, because I don't really watch Saturday Night Live, but the streets were talking, so she had to bring it to you. Next story. Another interesting series of stories that I actually found was how many artists are going on tour. It's so insane. There are so many people touring. It's I almost feel like they're giving tours away for free. It's oh, you want to go on tour? Here's a tour, honey. You go tour, honey. Go fill up whatever field or room you want to fill up. We're going to make a tour for you, honey. While I think this is probably a post-COVID boom for these artists, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Bad thing in the sense that the economy is so hectic at the moment. Things are skyrocketingly expensive, So the average person now has to think about getting groceries and getting food and all of these expenses that are just going up. Eggs are so ridiculous at the moment. I'm always going to talk about eggs because it's one of those things which you don't even really think twice about getting in a supermarket because it's not one of the most expensive items. But now when you look at the price, you're damn, it's so expensive. So yeah, the economic climate as it stands is so hectic. Things are expensive, and every single artist on earth is trying to go on a tour at the same time. And I guess, right, everyone has to make some money. Everyone wants to make money in some way. So I do support it for the artists because that's how they put bread on the table. So it's a good thing in that regard. Bad in the sense that things are just generally expensive, so it makes the tickets more expensive. And yeah, some of the most exciting tours, though, that I've been seeing on the streets are Chris Brown's going on a tour, Lady Gaga's going on a tour, Katy Perry's going on a tour, Beyonce is obviously going on a tour, and many, many more. Wizkid is going on a tour. Just a lot of people are going on tours, and some of those tours are non-negotiable. Some of those tours are you have to go because this is an event of the decade, so you have to go. Beyonce, right? Beyonce, every time she tours, it's always a big spectacle because that going to that tour, you're going to see a girl who has put blood, sweat, and tears into what she does, who treats what she does like a job. And so she's going to give you content. She's going to give you performance she is working for the last, she's just working, honey. She's working. So I feel with those tours, depending on how she prices it, obviously, with a Beyonce, that's a top-end concert ticket. So it's going to be quite expensive. So because of the value that she does bring to the table, sometimes I do feel artists like her are warranted in making their tour tickets quite expensive because you're not really going to see a production that's not polished. She's going to give the people what they want. So in some ways that's justified. And then sometimes you have people who go on tour and it's well, actually I should probably just only like you on CD because, not CD, what am I saying? Am I in the 2000s? But I should probably only just listen to you on my streaming platform because you sound better on that than live. There's a lot of artists who sound very shockingly bad when they perform live, and then you're just like, oh, why did I even come here? I guess for the atmosphere, but like sometimes you really want people to give their all. And I also understand the dynamics of being on tour, because you probably, if it's like a circuit and you're going to more than 30 cities, if you're on like your 25th city, you're not going to have the same enthusiasm as you had on your first day. So I can also imagine how boring and repetitive it becomes, and so you get different energies from different shows, and depending on how the person is feeling, because they're human after all. But some artists, again, if you look at Beyonce, she has a very good way of perfecting her energy and making sure that her product is consistent, and that's what she's been known for, you know, performing. I would say she doesn't have as much choreography in her tours as much as she did, like, for example, what was the one that she, basically her earlier tours, like Beyonce's earlier tours, pre-Renaissance, had a lot of choreography, you know, Formation World Tour and all of those, you know, tours. They had a lot of choreography, and you'd see her, honey, breaking it down. I feel like that's culture for her has kind of shifted into relying more on the technology, the theatrics that she could do, and the, you know, the things that her team can essentially put together to still make the product look very finished, very polished, but she doesn't have to do as much work, you know, and to dance as much. She still does, but it's not, you know, it's not to the extent that she did when she was younger, and that's expected. But I feel like she sort of aged with, you know, with her audience. Although she's still a crossover artist, she's got an appeal of many different generations. She sort of aged very nicely, that it does not look like she's complacent. It still looks very much polished, and the visual effects, honey, are just giving. So with her, you know, and her tour prices and all of that stuff, it's all justified. And yeah, sometimes something like Sexy Red. So I debated to go to Sexy Red like last year when she was on tour, and I love her, right? I love her music. I think it's just the most don't give a fuck music I've heard in a while. And she's so unapologetically just herself. Like, whatever that is, she's unapologetically the character that she portrays, you know, don't give a shit, Sexy Red type vibe. But I'm also just like, I don't think she's a great live performer per se. You know, can she command a ginormous stage? Probably not. Will she give you flow and vocals like that's, you know, the way it's mastered on the like finished product, the song? Probably not. So why are you really going there? For the vibe and to party? Probably. But will you, if you were to, you know, decide between going to a Sexy Red concert and Beyonce concert, of course you're going to go to a Beyonce concert, because it's going to be more of a theater production show than Sexy Red just like twerking and, you know, taking sips of brown juice in between. So yeah, Lady Gaga also has sold out her tour. Like, Lady Gaga's tour was sold out in a very short amount of time. I do feel like that's also because of the venues that she's using. Lady Gaga is doing these arena tours when she's an actual stadium artist. You know what I mean? She has enough goodwill, enough equity to do stadium tours multiple times over and sell them out just as quickly as she did the arena tours. So I do feel like that was a flop. If it was intentional, good for her, because she noted that, from what I saw apparently, that she's doing an arena tour because she wants to control the elements, and she wants it to be a very theatrical masterpiece. So when you're in an arena, right, you can do so many special effects, which I get, right, because it's a controlled environment. But I do feel like you can maybe choose stadiums as well and grow that. Like, you haven't toured in a very long time, so all of that pent-up demand, only for you to do an arena tour, is probably not the best decision. And I do think maybe this is just the first leg of a tour. She's probably going to do another leg of it. Or not, you never know with Lady Gaga. You just really never know. But hopefully she does another leg of the tour, and that's a stadium tour, so that the masses can attend. Because at this point, if you go on these ticketing platforms, the tickets are so ridiculous. Like, so ridiculous. Not even Beyonce tickets are that expensive, you guys. They are so expensive, you know. So yeah, she's obviously sold out, but as expected. Is that really a feather in her cap? Not really, because we expected her to sell out, but we also expected her to do a stadium tour. So, and then I love how Chris Brown is also doing his 20th anniversary tour. I think obviously it's about time, but I also feel like him touring and filling up, you know, F&B Stadium in South Africa was testament to the fact that this person has the goodwill, he has the equity to fill up stadiums. I think it became very apparent to him in that moment that I am a very big artist, I'm a legendary artist, I've been around for a long time, I can fill up stadiums in Africa, I can fill up stadiums in the world. So I think it was very much a cathartic moment. I mean, the Residuals music video is based on that performance at F&B Stadium. So I do think that he will sell out his tour, and the tour will be a very good stepping stone, on the back of the fact that he did have an arena tour last year, which did also really well. But I think just the momentum that he's been maintaining, Residuals has done really well, and his album also did really well, and he's been getting a lot of accolades, and I feel like he's kind of has that momentum to keep going, to keep going. So I do think it's going to be quite a big tour, and I think definitely would recommend anyone who wants to go to a tour to definitely go to a Chris Brown tour, because he can dance. Remember, we've been talking about how is our tour ticket price is actually worth it, but he can perform, he can dance, he really can do the most. So you want to be entertained when you're on a tour. So definitely I think that will be a must go to tour. Who else is performing? Wizkid, obviously. He had that More Love Less Ego tour that he had planned in 2023, and then unfortunately he had a personal loss, and so he essentially couldn't fulfill all of those tour dates because he was going through a lot. So I'm happy that he's finally back on his feet. He's producing content and songs, and they're doing very well, and he's touring again. So that's definitely going to be a must go to tour. And he's just he's just such a great artist. Lots and lots, longevity for years. What am I saying? So I know that'll definitely be a great tour. I do feel like Wizkid also, for me personally, I prefer to see him in intimate environments. I think his music, especially as he's grown over the years, has become very soulful, you just become in touch with yourself when you listen to his music. So every time I experience his music, I always picture him performing in a very intimate environment, and that's the environment that I want to see him in. I want to see Wizkid in an intimate environment, performing, serenading us, and giving us everything that we've always wanted. So yeah, Wizkid, you better give us the best arena tour yet, and we'll be watching. Anyway, babies, I hope you enjoyed yet another episode of The Messiest Bitch on the Internet. I hope that you continue to comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you again on the next video. Mwah.